Good evening, everyone, and thank you so much for joining us on A World Awakening. It's wonderful to see you all, even though I can't see any of you. All I can see is the dog walking through the room from time to time. One of them, anyway. The other one's sound asleep. So anyway, welcome to A World Awakening. Tonight I have two lovely young men who I had the opportunity to meet at my event in Burrowville that I did, the Ocean State Paracon. And we made our introduction there a couple of years ago. And Justin and his son, Christopher Herlihy, are folks that have not only a fascination, but a real love of my childhood home. And so there was a great deal for us to discuss. For those who are tuning in because they think they're going to get some stuff on the ongoing controversy at the farm, forget about it. You can just go to another YouTube channel at this point, because that's not what this show is about tonight. What this show is about is delving into the history of that home, that place that holds a special, the core of my heart, the only place that has ever felt like home to me in my life, my permanent place on earth. And they love it the way that I do. And so Christopher, who is a student of history and really a paranormal investigator, along with his dad, are going to join us tonight. We had a little bit of issue with tech issues, but we're doing much better now. That's great. How are you, gentlemen?
Very good.
I'm just concerned that this isn't working very well. Can you hear us? And
Yes. Yes, you look much better
I had to
than...
log out and everything, so I was like, oh,
Yeah.
anyway.
Yeah, I know. It's a little it's tech, it's our best friend until it's our worst enemy. It's just how it is. And let's face it, Rhode Island is not known for having the very best technology when it comes to Wi-Fi or anything else like that. So, anyway, Christopher, you and I had a conversation a month or two ago about your discovery of an old cemetery that I was unaware existed. Mm-hmm. So it was very important to me because I care about the spirits at the farm. I care about, the Richardson family built the farm, and then through marriage, it became the Arnold property. And you've done a great deal of research on both. And so I wanted to give you an opportunity as a budding historian and a budding paranormal investigator who feels a very strong attachment to that house, to talk about your experiences. So the floor is yours.
So, yeah, a few months ago, like more than a few months ago, I was sitting in bed, and a few times before I tried to find the Richardson Cemetery. Like for hours and hours, I tried my hardest, but I never could quite found it because there's one issue. A lot of the original owners, so there's like Isaac and Jonathan, they're not listed to be buried anywhere on any website that I've found. Even I've asked Betty at the Burrowville Historical Society, because she knows surrounding. I know it's in Uxbridge, but it's very close by. And I asked her all about it, and she says that there's one that she think it could be, and that's the Richardson Cemetery up in Uxbridge, the Joseph Richardson.
Which used to be part of that property and used to be part of Rhode Island.
Yep.
Yeah.
Back a long, long time ago, because the house originally had a lot of land, like 1,000 acres.
Thousands of acres, yes.
So it was a part of their property originally, which does make sense if you really think about how they're the original owners. And then we went there, because you can find a little bit of it on some websites like Find a Grave. And I saw there was definitely Richardson's there, and I was able to find from family trees that you could track it all the way back to the first owners, and then through marriage down the line into the Arnolds, and then up to the Arnolds, and from marriage and stuff. So
That's all the reason you were looking for it.
So
So Henry.
we heard the story about Oliver Richardson. I've always heard about that. That was always my favorite story. And at the house, they believe the spirit's name was Henry Richardson. Personally, I
And
like.
that could be too, because a
Mhm.
lot of times Henry the senior might have had a Henry Jr., but it was traditional when you had two with the same name in the family to use the middle name as the identifying name for a child, even though he might have been Henry Jr. So, that's certainly plausible.
But I always heard about that, and I was like, if it's really Henry Richardson that died as a kid, he's gonna be there. There's nowhere else in the world he would be. So
Right.
I looked and found a grave, and there he was, Henry Richardson, the spirit of the little boy, right there. And like you said, one of the times I met you, if there was anyone to find it, it would be me. And then a few months later, I did. I found it.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, like a
Well,
year.
you are tenacious.
Mm-hmm.
Christopher, I will give you credit. I mean, you're willing to put in the time and the effort. And, it is a very tedious thing to go through town records and, historical documents. And you do that you seem to relish it. It seems to bring you a great deal of pleasure.
Because it's always that finding something new that's always like, that right there is what I'm doing it for. Like, I do my own family research. Whenever I cross over a roadblock or I get something further, it always gets me really excited to do more. And with the Richardson Cemetery, the night that I found it, confirmed it was that, we went the next day because we weren't going to waste any time. We wanted to see it how it is.
Mm-hmm.
So we went, and everything is there. All like there's Richardson's, and there's back a long time ago, before they wanted to put names and stones, they just had little stones and they just put them in the ground, or they put like initials. There's a lot of those there. I know for a fact the original owners are there. I asked people at the Historical Society. I can't confirm which stone is theirs, but they're 1,000% there.
Yes.
And so Henry was the exciting thing, the emotional part of this for him. For a year, we would go to the library. We would go. He's searching on his phone. So when he eventually texted me at work and was like, I think I found Henry, I was like, it was an exciting day for us, because it was like he had lurked for a year for this. First of all, we searched for Oliver the whole summer before. The people at the library helped us, and then he started doing his own research, and it was a culmination of hard work, and it led to he has other stories, but we just wanted to make that clear, because he has a lot
I have a lot
of
to do.
information to squeeze in. But it was because of Henry. It was like, in the movie it's Rory, in real life it's Henry, and to make that connection in real life and see Henry's stone on the ground was like.
And yet my sister April had a relationship with that child that she was very protective of. And she said he told her his name was Oliver Richardson. And, so it doesn't matter whether, I mean, she basically got it from the source. That was how he was referred to in the family. And she said that he appeared to be maybe 5 or 6 years old when he passed away. So undoubtedly, either it was some kind of illness, or, I mean, you were lucky. You through your own research that it was considered bad luck to even name your baby until the baby reached the age of 1. It was considered bad luck to attribute a name to the child, because infant mortality rates were through the roof. A common cold could kill a baby.
I think on the stone it said 11 months, right?
Yeah, he died at 11 months and 29 days, which very common back then to like, because if you were a baby, we didn't have what we had. We didn't have what we had now when you were a baby, where if I was sick and I was a baby, they could treat that right there in the hospital, right after you were born. But
Right.
back then, if you got sick, they had nothing to do for it. They had their little things where you do this or this. Most of the time, it wouldn't work, and even if it did, it was only temporary. So you were
Mhm.
lucky if you made it past the age of like 3 back then. And
Yeah.
I think it was a reason a lot of families had like 15 kids. So of his research, it's unbelievable. Some of the cemeteries where like the family had like 15 kids, and it's I think was like a for that reason like it's so the opportunity that some might not make it, and they would just have so many kids. I think I don't know.
that's how it was
Well,
back then. My
and
great
the
grandmother,
obvious
she
reason
has, I think,
there was no birth control, none available, so
yeah,
That too.
yeah. There's no way to like if you didn't want the pregnancy or not, you were having it. There's no way around it. It's like my great grandmother, she has 15 other siblings.
Mhm.
That was just all back then. They had a ton of kids because if one or two of them made it past 15, that was amazing, and that's what you were aiming for, because the chances of that were very, very low. But
Yeah, I can't even imagine living back then and going through all of what is entailed in becoming a mother, and then knowing just by the law of averages that these precious little babies that you loved so much and gave life to and brought into the world were probably not going to make it. I can't even imagine that level of heartbreak and loss and grief that so many women lived throughout their entire childbearing years. And so many women died young because their bodies broke down. They just had so many children that they were lucky if they lived past 40 years old. Life expectancy for a woman in the 1700s was 42.
very, very low.
Yeah.
So at the Richardson lot, I'm going to continue with that. So the way the Richardsons, like the house, the property, was built originally by Noah Arnold and his son Noah Arnold Jr. because the property was owned by the Richardsons for like a half, like 50 years or something. It was a long, long time. And
Mhm.
then this girl, Anne Richardson, married John Arnold Jr. And
Mhm.
then, back then, women couldn't own property. So it would either go to your son or your son-in-law. So it went to their son-in-law, which was Noah Arnold Jr., and him and his father built, at least I know it was part of the house because it was built in 3 sections.
Right.
So
And
there's
there were barns that went all the way. They're gone now. Mr. Kenyon demolished what was left of them. But even in the oldest photograph that we have of the farmhouse, you can see that there are other outbuildings. And then when the big barn that's there now was built, they connected it so that you never had to go outside to tend for your animals.
yeah, it went from Noah Arnold Jr. down to his son, who is John Arnold, which a lot of people that know the story or have seen videos, they know about John Arnold and his wife Abigail. They're the ones who had, I think it was 15 or 14 kids, somewhere around there. And that's one of my big discoveries, is finding this cemetery that they were buried at. And I found it a long, long time ago. It's just the way to get to it was the struggle, because first of
Yeah.
all, we didn't really know how to get to it because the pictures were an awful quality. There was green, there was vines, it was in the middle of the woods somewhere.
Yeah.
And there's only 2 videos ever that I could find of it. One of them is in a documentary, and it's very, very short, and it's not a good video. And the other one is from a YouTube channel that got deleted like a few times. It's very, very old. And they don't show how to get there. They just show the road, and then they show at it. So me and my dad had to go through the woods, over a brook, over 2 brooks, and then up like a hill to go get to it.
Mhm.
And it's that's my favorite thing I've ever done relating to all this.
Um,
Everyone's there.
he had you call them bucket list places to
Yeah,
find?
my bucket list places, and that was number 1.
So once again, he's very matter of fact about this. This was a huge deal. So his bucket list places when he's been doing this since he was 11. He's 14 now. I want to find the Arnold lot someday. He used to talk about this in our car rides. We would, if we didn't have a tour, we would drive around Burrillville. We'd go around the back roads. We would go to the library. We know that town better than our hometown. We're in Putnam right now. When he found that, it was like we stopped a couple of times. It was like, I don't know, Christopher, there's a brook and then we got to get back. And it's really hairy. I mean, it is thick. There's trees down and this cemetery is up on like a hill. And he had like a beacon and I just followed him. He was like,
Yeah,
we're almost there. And he's like, he starts taking off. And then, so there's another part of this that's you want to talk about with the graves on the site.
so
Before you do that, have you been to the Arnold Cemetery that's at the corner of Brook Road and Sherman Farm Road? That's deep in. Is that the one? That's the one.
Where Abigail and Susan and John and everyone.
Yes.
everyone
Yes.
That was the holy grail for him to find.
Mhm.
And just because I don't know
Well,
how
if
many
you want to
watching
get
are
up to
aware.
it, you've got to go on private property to do
Mhm.
it. But I know the owner, and so every time
Yeah,
she
we-
sees me, she's like, "Oh, hi, Andrea."
yeah, we got
So-
permission from them. That was a big thing.
So we went to the house, and the guy's got 17 acres of land.
Yeah.
And he said, yeah, but there's another road you can take that goes right there. So technically, we had to go around, and I always teach to him intentions, and it's like we're kind of trespassing around the back, but the intentions are in his heart, where he just wanted to find
It's a
this place.
cemetery, yeah.
The respect for the people that lived at the farm. He just wanted to find them, and like he finally found them. And it was just
And we did get the main piece of the puzzle. We did get his permission. He owns the cemetery, so
right.
we were allowed to go there.
So, and do you want to wait on his other discovery?
No, I'm ready. Let's do it.
So it's that was the biggest find for me. I went there. It's over a brook and on the top of a hill and everything, and everyone's there. All the Arnolds that you see in the videos and you hear in the stories that they stay in the house and everything. Every single person's there, and that was the biggest thing for me because that was since the first time I ever went there and I heard about John Arnold and Abigail Arnold. Those were the two that I was like, well, where are they buried? And I finally found it and went there, and like, it was the best find I've ever done. And every single Arnold you can think of is there. There's not a single one that's left out that is part of the main story.
Well, except did you go up, cross up Round Top Road and the first cemetery on the right, which is the Chase Cemetery,
Yeah,
which is where Mr. and Mrs. Kenyon are buried. Also has Eber Arnold, and Prudence Arnold, and yes, so there that family. That was also a family cemetery, but it was also a community, and it was part of Rhode Island at that time.
That was the first place that we've been there a long time ago. That was one of the first because it's so close to the house.
Yeah, it's public and it's right there, so it's very easy to get to.
So the other cool. Do you want to tell about finding Prudence's home? Whatever.
Yeah. So
it's a set. Obviously, Andrew.
the thing about Prudence. You know everything.
So they tell these stories at the house. So we always thought to find these places, and when they're told as stories, they're kind of like you can't really connect with them that they're real.
Mm-hmm.
So with Prudence, with the story, it's not a story. Like he found articles, and so we know that what really happened there. Obviously, it's violent.
It's very tragic and violent.
Very tragic. Yep.
So this is another thing he dug down and found. How you want to tell him how you found the home?
So
he didn't just find the house. There's a reason how he found it through his researching, and then I'll talk. We have video and pictures of the house, and
so that Prudence Arnold, her parents died when she was very, very young, so she was adopted by a family member, which was I think it's Anon and Sarah Richardson.
Mm-hmm.
Those were, and also those were Henry's parents, by the way. So how I figured out the house where she died in was I had to find Anand's father's will where he left his house, because his house is a historical landmark. I think it's the Joseph Richardson house in Uxbridge.
Yes.
And I had to find his will, and his will left it to Anand. So I knew she was living there at the time. And I heard the story that it was like and I heard the story when they said a road, so I knew it was around there. So I had a few clues. All I had to do was find the address. So I went to the historical landmark. It has its own page in Wikipedia, so it gave me the answer. And there it is. It's in Uxbridge, like 5-10 minute drive from the house. And it's very, very close to the Richardson Cemetery where Henry is buried, because that's most likely where Henry was living. In his short life, he was living there. So there's that house, and that was a big thing for me, because I've been trying to find that for like 2 years. That was a big thing. I wish we could go inside, but it's privately owned by people, so it's not like it's a tour or anything. I mean,
To see it in person.
yeah, to see it in person was amazing.
We've been through a million tours, and I think we've kind of graduated from guests to, like, I don't know, some other thing. But we started talking. Okay, we have this theory now. Okay, well, if that's where Henry lived, because that's where his parents' house is, and we drove by it and we like looking at it, and we started coming up with theories of, well, why would Henry's spirit be at the Conjuring House, or at the Arnold
lot, yeah.
If that's where Henry grew up, where Prudence was living. So
it's like, so Prudence, I mean, I get it does make sense for her to be there sometimes, because yes,
that was her home 1st.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
So her would be step great grandmother was Abigail Arnold. And also, so the family tree has some mixed branches in there, but also technically her, I think it was her uncle or her great uncle was John Arnold Jr. So was very much related to people at the house. So she 100% went there a few times. She was related to tons of people there in multiple ways. So she would have way more than just one way to get access to that house from family.
By the way, he has all this on his phone professionally, like March Madness bracketed with. This kid is organized. Like, this isn't just. He's not just like. This is.
Bill, I don't know if Bill's got it loaded, but I did send him a couple of photographs to put up of what he sent me. Let me see if I can get him to do that. Okay, so keep going, and if he's got the
theory,
I'll do that.
So we have lots of conversations. I always tell him we should have a podcast. When if I would just hit my phone and record it while we're talking on our walks and stuff. He always has like such awesome stuff to say. So we started thinking, why would Henry's spirit be at the Conjuring House?
And we don't know that necessarily.
Part of our theory from our upbringing as kids, and you might have this too. You might have some of your best memories of your life at a certain location when you're a kid that you'll never forget. Maybe from a holiday, or a certain Sunday ritual, or something you do with your parents, where if you smell coffee, like for me, if I smell brewed coffee, I immediately am in my grandma June's house. And we were thinking maybe Henry, even though he was so little when he died, maybe his memory or his spirit is attached maybe from being at that house.
I don't know. I tend to think that it's a separate child, because my sister April said that the little boy that she met in spirit over and over again was somewhere between 5 and 6 years old.
Yeah,
roughly the same age as she was when we moved into the farm.
Well, we'll stick him on it, and I'll bet you he'll find out who it is. So.
That's what I was saying. When they were saying Henry, I was like, yeah, but Henry died at 11 months, so it wouldn't make.
Yeah.
I mean, I really want it to be him, but something's telling me it's not him because
Not him. I don't think so either. I think you're right about that. I think that there was a child that lived and died in that house at the age of 5 or 6 years old that was afraid of something, very afraid of something whenever he would come out of the little door in the upstairs closet.
Most likely be an Arnold, I would think.
No, he said his name was Oliver Richardson.
Yeah, but I mean, if it's an Oliver Richardson, I actually did this a while back. I narrowed it down because of the time period that you say. I've listened to all the interviews and I've did all my research. The time period that you think, and he's a Richardson and he had to have been living in the house, I would think that he'd have to be a brother or a first cousin of Anne Richardson, who was the wife of John Arnold Jr. So, records are back then. You don't really know. You can't really get all the records from back then.
Right. It's
So she
very
could have had
hard.
a brother named Oliver Richardson that would have lived at the house or maybe went there a lot. And I have no way of checking that because I've looked and she doesn't have any brother named Oliver Richardson, but she very well could have. I just don't know where.
So transition to his most recent achievement, which is I'm so damn proud of. And why don't you tell about getting? So when we talked about the Arnold lot, there were no pictures online for the. I think we sent you pictures of this, right, the other day.
Yes.
About that.
So I think Bill's got them loaded.
Okay.
Bill, can you put those up? Oh, that's us when we met. That's the day we met. Yeah.
There was a hot day.
It was a hot day. I thought I was going to die. I don't have that much hair anymore. Oh, God. All right. This is the Rhode Island Historical.
I'll let him tell you.
So this is the Rhode Island Historical Cemetery's website, of all of Rhode Island, where the Arnold lot is. And there was no photos on there because they can't go on Find a Grave and other websites and take those photos because of copyright issues. So I messaged the people over there and was like, hey, I have these photos. I would love for you to put them on there. And I went back and forth with this one girl. And eventually she was like, we should have them up there eventually, which I was really excited about. And then a few months later, there they are. So I'm very excited about that.
There we go, Abigail.
Abigail Arnold, yep.
So I'm not much of a believer in crazy things, but do you remember our conversation when I said about activity and how for a couple of years he never got any, and I still don't know, but from seeing him in person, the way he hunts these places down, seeing now that they have their stones or visual to the public, it's kind of like, I know it sounds crazy, but I always say, I think his not activity, his experience was they gave this to him to find for them or something. It's hard to explain, but when you see how just in person how passionate, and when he gets close to where these places are, he's like a hunting dog. He's just he takes off and I just follow him. He's like
bloodhound. Follow that bloodhound. There you go.
It's just so cool that this. He doesn't have any social media sites for any of this stuff.
Nope.
I just go along for the ride, and he just thinks it's so amazing to just get these pictures up so that maybe somebody from the family looks them up one day, and now they have pictures of their stones, of the Arnolds, who were from when he was 11. It was because of the cool Conjuring house from the movie and stuff.
Yeah, that's what got me into it in the first place, is because it's The Conjuring house. It's The Conjuring. It's the biggest horror movie of all time. And the story of it is crazy. And when I first heard about it, I was with my mom, I remember, and she read your books 20, 10 years, 10, 15 years before then. And she was telling me, she was like, yeah, I heard about the story a little bit. I read one of the books. And I was like, well, where's the house? So I was with my dad, and we were Googling it, and it was down the street from where we live. So I was like, well, why don't we go check it out? And at the time, it was in the process of being sold, so it wasn't really open to the public, so we could only see it from afar. But eventually, it opened for tours, and then there you go. That's where it all started.
And
Now, do you feel, Christopher, that you have some kind of spiritual or psychic connection with one or more of the spirits that draws you into this, or that you're operating on this plane of action so that you can identify the spirits? You feel like personally invested, emotionally invested in and bringing their story to light, their history to light.
Well, what me and my dad think is that the spirits want to be found. So that's why he thinks that my experience is them giving me that want and that desire to come find them. And that's why, like, randomly, I'll just get the urge to be like, all right, we're finding the Richardson lot right now. And then there I go and find it. So we think that maybe I have a spiritual connection with, like, overall, or just maybe a few certain ones that really, really want to be found and publicized. Because if you think about the big YouTube channels that go there and post their videos, they're not going to the cemeteries. They're not talking about.
No, they're trying to find evidence from the house
Yes.
to put out, and that's their primary motivation. I don't think they're particularly interested in the actual history of the house in terms of the who the spirits were, and I've often said that myself too. Having lived there for 10 years of my life, it didn't matter as much to me who they were. That they still are is what I find most fascinating. That their presence is still there, attached to that farmhouse. And I didn't feel a compulsion to want to call them by name. For instance, I think I told you, Justin, when we were talking the story about Cody and Satori and the method that they use, and a spirit came through at the house named Joseph. And everybody was looking at each other and said, did Andrea write about a Joseph in the books? And no, I hadn't, because I didn't know that name, and my mother had not come up with that name in her research when we lived there. And so apparently this spirit could sense the confusion in the room, and came through and sent through one short sentence: Nancy called me Manny. Well, we thought for years and years, based on my mom's research, that spirit that was there the day we moved in, that man standing in the corner staring at Mr. Kenyon, was Johnny Arnold. And Nancy, my sister Nancy, of course, didn't know who his name was. And so she saw this man and she called him Manny, for lack of a better, to give him some identifying characteristic. And for him, 50 years later, to come through Cody and Satori and say, Nancy called me Manny, clarified everything. And we'd been out of the house, for decades and decades.
At the Richardson lot, there's lots of Josephs, and a lot of them we couldn't read. Just because they're so old, you can't read like the specific writing, the dates.
Even the etchings are almost impossible. Yeah.
But we saw at least half a dozen Josephs there, so it's possible.
Yeah. So what the Joseph thing? You also talked about, I forgot where, but you talked about some Isaac. They I don't know if that was you, but one of the people that went there said that they keep getting one named Isaac and Joseph. Like you said, Joseph. The reason that I think, because I've thought about, why would he be staring at specifically Mr. Kenyon? Why not be staring at, who's coming into my house? I would think he'd be more interested in Roger or Carolyn or you guys.
No,
But no.
nothing. There was nothing. And yet he looked absolutely solid to me.
Yep.
I mean, as I walked past him, I said, "Good morning, sir." And my sister Nancy saw him evaporate into thin air.
Yeah,
But
like he was.
he had, now think about this though, the Kenyans lived there for more than 50 years.
Mhm.
And so his attachment, if there was one at all, would have been to the Kenyans. And
Yes.
I mean, he looked right through me. It was almost like he didn't even see me. He was fixated on what Mr. Kenyon was doing, which was leaving the house.
Yeah, it's got the same thing. So
Andrew, we've done so much research. We were looking through this giant thing at the library, and I always said to him, "We have to ask Andrea this." So, what? It seems that your dad in the '70s tried to get some land purchased for campgrounds, like 130 plots. It's
Mhm.
yeah,
Yeah.
we saw that.
Um,
We never heard about that. It was
we were
crazy.
we were so curious. What was that for? Do you know?
Well, my father figured if we had that much property that we should, the farm is extremely expensive. It's a money pit. I mean, it
Yeah.
just is. And he thought that the land should pay for itself. And what he wanted to do was build a beautiful, without disturbing the nature, put in campgrounds so that people could go and enjoy some of the original, practically virgin forest of New England for a few months out of the year. And it would have been a way, to bring extra income into the family. And it was a bright idea, but the town council turned him down flat. They just
Yeah, that's what we
they
saw.
wouldn't give
Said
him
they
a
turned him
business
down, I think,
license
twice.
to operate
Yeah,
a
that's
business
too bad.
there. Yeah, no, actually, in a way, I think it's okay.
Yeah,
He ended up, opening another business that was very lucrative, and he did very well with it. And he had his jewelry business, and so I don't know. I believe that the universe, we make the best made plans,
Mhm.
and the universe laughs in our face and says,
yes.
"No, no, no, you're not going to do it that way."
Well, he's proof of that because
Yeah.
he hasn't been able to go to the house since November, and he discovered the most important thing since he's been there since 11 after that. So
Mhm.
so thank you for doing that. We said, well, there's other things we can do. We've already built,
That's not it. The house is not just it. There's so much more to that.
and we've
Yeah.
already built a hobby out of going to Burrville and doing research. So he found Henry and then the Arnold lot, and it was like just that fall was just so
It was
exciting.
crazy. Yeah.
And he's very protective of Henry's spot. We've only brought one other person, our friend Tara, and he's seen what the world has become with people wrecking things, and just the way.
So what I think is the cemetery. It's not too hard to find. I think we're not gonna tell anyone about it because it's Henry Richardson Stone, and they talk
Yeah,
about
you've got
Henry.
to protect it now that you
Yeah.
know where it is. You
I am
have to.
very
The only
protective.
way that you can is with your silence.
We haven't told anyone else where it is. We've only showed one person, and I think that's more than enough because that cemetery alone, I think it was a few years back, had a vandalism problem, and it was just like most of the stones were completely destroyed. Like Henry Richardson stone is in 3 pieces, and most of the stones there are in multiple pieces. It's just awful.
So in this spring, hopefully, when we met Betty at the Historical Society, another huge thing that would be very exciting for him, she told me that she would exchange information, and then when she's able to go back to the Arnold lot to fix it up, because there are some stones that need to be repaired, Christopher might get a chance to be a part of that, which is be another like exciting thing for him. That
Yeah, I really hope I can, because they cleaned it up a few months before we went, and you could very much tell because every photo and every story I've seen was ingrown, and it was like 10-foot tall vines. When we went, it was perfect. It was like it was like perfectly fine. Like it was
Yeah.
never
I think
never touched by anything.
they had just trimmed it and cut everything down in like October. So by the time we got there, it was like, wow, this doesn't look like it does in the video, and you can actually see the gate around it and everything.
Yeah.
Really cool, and really to be there and see like Abigail's stone, and you know, from our beginning of going and hearing stories about Abigail and the pheasant and pear pie and everything, it was like to be there. It's kind of not eerie. It was more like a, I don't know. It's just what's the word?
It was very surreal to see
Surreal.
it all.
There we go.
Yeah.
Hey, but I also find it very inspirational. You know, I've been to that cemetery a number of times. I can't even tell you how many over the course of my life. And I find it a very peaceful, very tranquil place.
Yes.
Didn't your mom find it from when she used to hike the
Yes, and my father used to go there. I don't know why. My father had kind of a special attachment with Abigail Arnold, and he would go there and just kind of commune with them, you know, that family. And if he was upset or if he just had something, it was like something knocked at the back of his consciousness and said, go to the cemetery.
Really?
Yeah. And he always had a very special care and concern for Abigail Arnold. And I always thought, and after I saw the only photograph that I ever saw of her on Ancestry.com, I recognized her as one of the spirits in the house. And she was the one that was so kind, so gentle, so loving, so benevolent. I think she was probably the one that used to cross through the bedrooms at night and lean over and almost kiss our foreheads, but never, never quite made contact. But the few times that I remember that sensation, very often in the house when there's a spirit that's manifesting near you, the temperature will drop suddenly. But that was not the case with her. It was almost like a warmth that came with her that I can't explain. And nobody in this field can explain when something like that happens. You think you've got it figured out. You think, spirits can communicate and use electricity, and spirits can communicate and maybe travel through water. I mean, there's so many theories about how they come and go, or if they're always there but only occasionally make their presence known. How much energy does it require for them to manifest in form, etc.? None of us are going to have those questions answered, and you just have to get to a point where it doesn't matter whether or not those questions get answered, that's part of the mystery and the history of the farmhouse.
We don't need answers to everything. You know?
No. And that's why I always said it didn't matter to me so much of who they were, that they still are, is the most fascinating, most miraculous, most mystical, most intriguing element of the farm. And you are absolutely right, Christopher. It's not just the farm. It's all the area around that farm that is known for having supernatural activity. Mm-hmm. That was their property. That was their house.
He has autographed Andrea Perrin conjuring poster here.
I do see that. I recognize that. I remember signing that for him.
Yeah.
And in this, his sweatshirt he's most proud of has your autograph on it too. So.
Yeah. Yeah, that's the thing. I keep that locked away because if I get it too dirty or something, like I don't want to risk anything because the signatures, I don't want it to fade away. It can't.
Yeah.
It's very
He
special.
protects yours. The other one, he got Arnie Johnson and Tony Spera's autograph at the Paracon. This is his.
Yeah,
It's a little worn down.
It's
but
very bad quality because that was years ago.
it was
But
his first Paracon to see Annabelle. And I just want to do this because I'm a proud parent. He just won Student of the Month. So.
Oh yeah, color me surprised. He's brilliant.
Yeah, it's a big surprise to everybody,
Yeah.
but I'm just proud of him. He's
Congratulations. Congratulations, honey. I'm sure it is well earned.
Mhm.
I'm sure you are as proficient and mindful a student in all your studies as you are in your pursuit of the history of the farmhouse and the area. You live in Putnam, Connecticut?
Yes.
Yep. It's
Okay. So you're right over the border. Yeah.
Very
yeah.
close.
It's like
I know
18.
Putnam.
It's 18 minutes from your farmhouse there, and sometimes we'll go up and just drive by and just see,
Just check
It's a
on
pretty
it.
ride too. It's a very
Yeah.
pretty ride through the backwoods of Rhode Island. You would
We
think
love
that, one of the original colonies that was settled so many. Oh, Madison Clarine says, "Keep it up, kiddo. You're inspiring." See, I knew that was going to happen. I knew this was going to, light people's fire. It is, yes, I agree, Terry. Big things are coming for this young man. I agree. And that, it's why I invited both of them on the show tonight too, because, there are a lot of people that are functioning in this field that are, for lack of a better becoming elderly, myself included. And at some point we have to pass the torch, and I couldn't pass my torch into better hands. And in the same way that I years ago began that process with Cody and Satori. I knew them since I knew them since they were your age. And so that's so nice. Look at all the people that are watching and all impressed with you.
There was
That's so great.
We went for his birthday. It was one of our last times there, and there was a staff member that from afar was like just listening to him talk, and she had said to other staff members, it's like he's an Arnold reincarnated.
Yeah.
I thought, well, that's the best
believe you said
compliment you
that. I don't know if I've discussed it with you or not, but from the moment that I met Christopher, I had a sense of him having an attachment to the farm that might even be that. We don't know if reincarnation is a real actual thing, but I had an experience at the farmhouse where I saw a spirit who I was 17 years old when it happened. And she looked, other than the hair, she had a huge head full of gray hair up on the top of her head. But she was the mirror image reflection of how I look now.
Yeah.
Only with lots and lots and lots of gray hair, but identical to me. And I saw her face. Everybody else in my family saw a side profile of her when she manifested, and she smiled at me like this kind of, I know something you don't know smile.
Mm-hmm.
And then she just kind of dissipated into thin air. And I was the only one that saw her face. And I didn't tell my mother what I saw until the day that we moved out of the farm. And she said, "I always knew we bought that house for you."
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I heard that story. You're at the fireplace after.
Yep, right in front of the fireplace. Yep.
Mm-hmm. And you said you were really, really cold, and you went to a fireplace, and then it must have been a different kind of cold because you were right there. You're still cold. You looked up, and then there was you in a different
and
form.
there was me. And it was shocking. And it was very disquieting for me because I was still so young. I had not really processed whether or not reincarnation was a thing. or just, or, a myth. But okay, we have 2 minutes left. We're going to have to wrap it up. But anyway,
I think we squeezed it
I,
all in.
Yeah.
I feel that same connection with the farmhouse that you feel. And so something intuitively tells me that we share a special kind of connection and attachment to that farm that seems to be a wellspring of information that comes forward about the people that lived and died on that property, that built that house. But my sister, my producer is saying they both need to come back with any new developments and or information regarding the farmhouse. He's very excited. And so we will do that. We'll just pick up, as things progress. We'll pick up where we left off tonight. But I want to
We'll find more. That's what he does.
Yeah, I'll figure it out.
Yeah. And I want to thank both of you for joining us tonight. It's been my pleasure.
You're looking good, Andrea.
Thank you. Thank you. I appreciate it. It's called makeup.
My mom wore those that you have on when she went through her treatment. So
yeah,
I say keep it on. I would, because I don't like my hair, but you look good. And it's
Thank
a pleasure.
you.
It's an honor to be in touch with you. And we thank you for doing that.
Wonderful.
I appreciate it very much.
Well, I'm your biggest cheerleader. You just keep going, and obviously our viewers are as impressed with you as I am, my dear young man.
His parents are too.
Yeah, very much.
I know, very much. Well, you just keep doing what you're doing, because you're an inspiration to many, and I feel very, very comfortable passing the paranormal torch to someone who is prepared to take it and run with it. So with that, we'll close out our show tonight. And for all of our viewers, thank you so much for joining us on A World Awakening. And I will leave you with the message that I always share. Be the change that you wish to see in the world. Always be the beacon of hope. Be the light you seek. Good night, everyone.
Bye.